This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Darby, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Patty Raymond, who's one of our hotshot new faculty members. New. How many years have you been at Middlesex now?
Off and on.
Off and on?
14 years.
I prefer on.
Okay. On?
On, yes. 14 years?
8 years, but off and on, meaning part-time and full-time, adjunct. I was out in the private sector for a while. Then
What were you doing in the private sector?
I was a telecommunications specialist, and I installed, engineered, and implemented telephone systems and data systems way back when, in the 1980s, 1990s.
So you were up with the technology at that
Absolutely.
time. Are you still up with that technology, do you
yes,
think?
I am. It's been a continuum, and I absolutely love technology because I think it gets us to that next place. But I really started with MS-DOS, which was very difficult
Oh, that's
to
a
use.
long time ago.
It's a long time ago. So, yes, yeah.
Obviously, people who are listening can't see you. You don't look that old, I must say.
I am older
But-
than everybody thinks I am.
Well, we're not. We'll go on to something else then.
Okay, good.
What do you teach at Middlesex?
I teach everything under the business umbrella. I teach marketing, management. I have taught finance, economics. I'm big into the technology. I've taught Excel, the Microsoft Office suite. I've taught certifications in telephony in other avenues, but here at Middlesex, it's basically just the Microsoft Office suite.
So, what is your single favorite topic to teach? If you had only one course that you had to teach,
Managerial communications.
tell me about that.
Managerial communications, because it is the vehicle, it is the place where you make that connection to every person, whether it's the private or the public sector, whether it's professionally, personally. You have got to communicate in the most effectual way, and that means you have to understand verbal, nonverbal, the written. It is all integrated.
So, are you in some ways, and I'm an English teacher from way back, are you in some ways teaching English? Is that what you're teaching?
It's more than English. They come to me with that skill. They can write. They can read, hopefully, very well. They can present a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But you're not quite sure whom.
Yeah, see, when you get a class of students and you tell them it's managerial communications, they think it's just English.
Oh,
but it's more than that.
Yeah.
English is the foundation. It's the basis for everything.
I understand that. We'll get back to that. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Darby, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Darby, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Patty Raymond, who teaches, among many other things, managerial communication.
Yes.
And I said, isn't that kind of like teaching English? And you said, absolutely not. There's a whole lot more to it.
I was being nice.
Yeah, you were being very nice. Is that part of your communication skills?
I believe so, and it is a program requirement for business administration, accounting, marketing, all the different disciplines in our division, only because, again, you've got to be able to communicate. And if you can't do that, you truly will be at a loss. And industry does look for this. That's one of the skills. One of the 4 skills that they look for is to be able to communicate.
So does that mean you communicate differently to different kinds of people?
Absolutely. You've got to understand what it's like to work in a global environment. So you have to work with individuals who are from other countries. They are more tacited in those countries, meaning highly tacited. So
meaning what?
There are layers to communication.
Yeah.
It's the unspoken, and you do have to understand that. It's the space that you have between people. Some countries like to be very close. We find that in this country, however, we like to be at this particular distance. It's measured by inches as to what is that comfort zone. So you do have to be cognizant of that.
So we're talking right now. How do you know whether you're communicating to me? I'm just looking at you and hoping to ask another question.
Sure.
How do you know whether you've communicated to me?
It's the rapport that you establish. It is the eye contact.
Well, you're looking at me and I'm looking
Yes,
at
I
you.
am.
How do you know that you're getting through?
I know that I am, only because of your response. All right, and again, it's that encoding, decoding. There is no distortion in this room right now. There is nothing to interfere with our communication. You can't see me now, but I am a
Yeah.
person who speaks with my hands as
Yes.
well, and that's a cultural thing.
Yeah, you're
coming.
doing it right now.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
And in some cases, right now in this venue, it's not distracting. But in another form, it would be. So in that sense, and I'm just giving you an example, what I do
Yeah.
in class is that I teach students that if you are someone who is more animated, and that's cultural, Italians do it, some of the Asian countries do it. I know in my mother's country, South Korea, they're very animated with their hands. You've got to find a way to control it, because if you're in an open forum with many persons, a huge audience, you don't want to distract too much, because you do have to convey what you're saying.
You want people to listen to you.
Absolutely. And that is the next piece to this, is the listening. You've got to hear what you can't hear and see what you can't see.
You've got to hear what you can't hear.
You've got to hear what you can't hear.
What does that mean? We've now said it 3 times.
Yes.
Here comes a fourth. You've got to hear what you can't hear. Tell me what that means.
It is a sixth sense that you've got to develop. One has to develop, especially when you go out in the real world, because oftentimes, if you truly aren't listening, you're not going to pick up on something, whether it's a client. Example, is it a client who is probably not doing so well with this deal that you're trying to broker? All right, so you didn't hear something, you didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go back and you have to feel that person out.
So if you're teaching me management communications, how many people would normally be in a class?
Normally, it would be about 22, 23, typically, because...
Low 20s. Okay.
It has to be, because I insist on a computer room because of the technology. My background's technology, so I'm big on that. And also, I believe that within that realm, they should be in teams. So what I do is, I randomly put them into teams the first day that they start with me. And what they do is, they are put in teams where it's not generational. You're not going to be with a friend. You're going to be with somebody you would normally not sit with. And I know you.
And what kind of exercises would you take them through?
What they do is they do 2 exercises in order to kind of solidify this team aspect. The first thing that they do is I make them come down here into the student center, and they make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I make them do that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I'd
it's
pass
stepping
that
out of the
one.
box.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what they do is they have got to now trust each team member that they've just met, and
Yep.
they usually do this within the first week, and they have to trust them enough to know that they'll bring a piece of that component to make that peanut butter sandwich. So one person will bring the bread, one person will bring the peanut butter, the other the jelly, so on and so forth. So we meet, and hopefully that person's going to be there. And what I'm trying to do is instill that trust factor.
So if I want to take management communications with you at Middlesex Community College, what do I need going in? I need to be able to read and write a little bit, presumably.
You have to come in with an open mind.
That's even more important.
That's more important, and anything goes in that particular class that I teach, only because I am really trying them to get to see beyond. All right, and again, 4 skills needed out in industry: the communication piece, collaborative team effort, we just discussed that. You also have to appreciate diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to come in with an open mind. So I insist upon it, and I developed activities, tactics, in order to get them to that
So
place.
give me an example of something I would be able to do when I've taken your class that I might not be able to do when I first walk in.
You would be able to at least be able to be part of a team, a collaborative team environment. You would be able to go out into industry with that skill, and that is being part of a team, appreciating diversity. You would have that critical analytical piece, because in the aspect of the team environment, you have got to be able to hone in on certain specialties. And what I do is I actually practice what I call participative management. It's an open style management where they are able to make decisions and delegate within their team. At first it's autocratic. When they first start out with me, I tell them what to do because they don't know
I
yet.
can imagine that.
But after a while, as we go through the process, it becomes more of a coaching,
So,
mentoring.
so is there a final exam?
The final exam is a final presentation, oral presentation, and an actual research paper.
Where
So
they have to sell something in the oral presentation?
if it's a selling class, yes. If I'm actually teaching selling,
Yeah.
yes, they do. In managerial communications, they are given a topic, whether it's a proposal for a new joint venture, it could be a new product, or doing business in another country would be another option that they could pick, or comparing two countries. They would have to present that. But again, I do not assign that in the beginning of the class. They are given that a month just before it's due. They're given 4 weeks to get this together, and they can do it because they have been doing it all along.
So
It's
what
called
kind of
scaffolding.
what kinds of jobs do your students tend to go into?
They go into jobs that are related to, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be first line supervision if they go out there immediately. Oftentimes I get students too who are just trying to acquire some of the skills that are needed that they didn't have out there. And those are the four that I
So what
always
would you
go
say
back
to what would you say to someone who kind of sounds intrigued and who wants to take management communications and their English is okay, but they're very shy?
You got to get over yourself, girl, or boy. You got to get over yourself. What we do is,
That's
again,
easy to say.
It's easy to
isn't it?
say,
Yeah.
but to get them to do it, it does take a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do that class, but I relish it because they do get to that place.
So you have students in the class who are shy?
Absolutely, and they haven't taken the public speaking, and I insist upon them. I get them up there as much as I possibly can. And what I do first is I get them to go up as a team so that they take pieces. And at that point in time, they start to hone in on the specialties. Someone can introduce well, someone can substantiate the body of your oral presentation, and then that person who can conclude is the person who's going to be persuasive, who's going to end it well. They are starting to see that. And so they are learning as they go. It's called differential learning. It's little anxiety.
So you're teaching management communications, and that's your favorite course, maybe.
It is.
What's your least favorite course that you still teach and hopefully teach well?
I would say, and please, I'm probably compromising what I just said about my background with technology. Intro to computers is probably my least favorite because it's very...
For you, it's repetitive,
it's
I imagine.
repetitive, and it's more of a structured environment. And it's harder in the sense that they're not... you have students that are not at the same level. They're at different levels.
Do you still have students in your classes who literally have never turned on a computer? There must be less and less of that.
No, not in my classes for the most part because they are the 200 level classes. So for the most part, they've gone past all of that and they've gone through the prereqs.
So when you're teaching introductions to computer, name just one skill that you teach.
Just, I would say the work ethic, just getting your work in on time, really trying to do it yourself before you ask for help. And I'm trying to, again, because I'm so
Reading
keen.
an email over before you send
Yes, it's just
Yes.
the basics that they need. Absolutely, yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Well,
Necessary as well, but
Yeah. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Darby, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Darby, interim president of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Patty Raymond, whom I describe as a hotshot faculty member at Middlesex Community College.
being too kind.
I'm being too kind, okay. In the business, you're not a hotshot. Whatever you say. She's sitting right opposite me, so I think you're a hotshot faculty member.
Why, thank you.
But anyway, you worked in the business world for a while, and now you're here as a teacher. Must be a very different kind of life. What's the biggest difference?
Well, first let me preempt this by saying this is a privilege to be able to teach others. It's a privilege to be here at this college, this institution. I don't...
A privilege in what way? What do you mean by that? I mean, you're not
aspect.
working for nothing, I don't think.
No, I work just as hard as I did out in industry, but there's a more of a gratification in the sense that one knows that they are embellishing somebody else's lives, You are guiding them to something more. I really truly believe that it does not stop at the classroom. You have got to make it a continuum for these students. So I follow these students right from the classroom, right into industry, or if they've transferred into a four-year institution, I'd like to hear back from them, what they're doing. I think that's very important because, again, that is the networking piece that we seem to forget. And that's what we do in industry. We have to maintain the networking in order to, again, find that breakthrough opportunity so that we can survive, succeed. And again, when you follow students' progress, don't you think it's going to come back? Absolutely, it comes back right at us. It's a 360, and that's our future. They are our future. So hopefully I've given them what they need to succeed, and hopefully they'll be able to give back to us.
Well, I'm teasing you about being I'm using the word hotshot as a teacher, but I mean it. How do you know whether you're doing a good job?
Well, I think
you're not selling something.
No, you're
se.
not. But you know, I believe that the student is our customer. That's number one. And
what does that mean?
I'm so business oriented that we have got to provide exceptional customer service. We've got to be here for the student.
Yeah.
Anytime, whatever day of the week, students have my cell phone. I know my husband thinks I'm nuts. But when
well, maybe you are.
Maybe I am.
Yeah.
But you know what? If it saves that student from going through just a whole process which they didn't need to, or if they only needed one little piece of advising to change the tide, all right? Because I've had students who were ready to leave because they were misadvised or whatever. But if it took them just to call me and say, I'll meet you here, all right? Let's see what we can do. Let's look at your checklist. Let's see if we can get you to graduate this semester. Then I've done it. I've been successful. That student, that person will go somewhere.
So you're looking at the long term. Let's say you're teaching a student, you've taught them for a couple of courses. Let's project out 5 years. What do you want them, you don't just want them to be rich, I guess. Well, what do you want them
I want
to call you back with?
Patty, I am successful in this regard. I am doing something that's significant, that's impacting others in a very positive way. You helped me to get there. I want to turn it around. I want to be able to do this for somebody else. I want it to be a continuum. If you're projecting out that far, I want to see that happen. Because if exponentially, if everybody could do that, we'd have a better world.
Now you're saying
I'm
that...
being an idealist, but I really truly believe that.
You're saying that any teacher should regard the student as a customer, should be into customer service. What if a student comes to you and says, you know, you gave me a C, and I really think I deserve a B+. You're not serving me very well giving me this C. I deserve a B+, and here's the work to... How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, I'm a big believer in telling you like it is, and I am direct with students. And I will say, well, you know, you're better than this, and I'm able to really substantiate why you didn't get that. And again, being in a class of mine, except for the intro to computers, but any of the other classes, you do work in a team environment. This is just not my evaluation. They are doing peer evaluation.
Okay.
Other students have seen you work. And don't you think I'm not looking at that and really taking that into consideration when I give you that grade? You know from the day one that the others are counting on you. So if you don't show up for your project, if you don't show up for that day to do your team activity, don't you think you're going to be held?
What about the student who makes? What about the student who makes a huge effort, but for whatever reason doesn't quite do it? Isn't quite able to handle the material or whatever.
That as well. Again, you're able to...
You don't just give them an A for effort,
you can't.
I assume.
You can't do that. But what you can do is tell them where they need to improve. Offer that guidance. There's a way to get around that. And again, you don't want to discourage them, because you want to keep them motivated. There are some of us that can, do math better than liberal arts. I mean, we just have
We're
those
all different,
mindsets.
yeah.
We have different levels of expertise. You find that in industry too. What I do try to do is I tell them there's something out there for you. It may not have been this, but there's something else that you excelled at, or there's one little thing in class or two things that you excelled at. So capitalize on that, hone in on that. And I think what I've done for these students, especially in those classes, is that you do start to specialize. There are students who write better. So who do you think does the research paper in that team? The students who write better. Who is going to do the PowerPoint? That student who excels at PowerPoint can do the graphics, the clip art, can incorporate YouTube.
Yeah.
And then you've got the student who can do the research. And don't you think, and they do, they figure it out. Every student figures out what their specialty is, and the team does.
And you give them some confidence.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I believe in that.
Now, one thing you've been working on, I know since you've been here, is the training, education, whatever word you want to call, of your colleagues. I mean, we all need professional development.
Absolutely.
You've been very active. Tell me a bit about that.
About 2 years ago, a professor retired here on campus, and I was afraid we were going to lose it.
What do you mean by losing
We were
it?
going to lose the Center for Teaching because nobody would step up. And
Oh, we have a center. Describe the Center for
the Center
Teaching.
for Teaching is a center that is statewide, involving a consultant from each community college. There's 12 community colleges, so there's 12
Right.
of us on this committee. And we come together every single month and discuss best practices. What can we do to help adjuncts, full-time faculty, and staff too? What can we employ? What can we come up with in order to make it easier for them to deal with all the issues that come down the pike when it comes to teaching in a classroom? It's just not what happens in the external.
So you
environment. It's
run
internal.
workshops in
And
the
yes, we do.
like.
We do. We run workshops where we give faculty scenarios, and they get into little breakout groups, and they discuss their methods, their ways of solving problems, alleviating certain situations. How do you deal with a student who's more aggressive? How do you deal with a student who's more quiet? What do you do to be more creative in the classroom?
Now, do you find that, frankly, the faculty members who need it least are the ones who show up, and the ones who need it most? Is there a bit of that?
I do see that.
What do you do about that? You can't
It's
just
very-
frog match them
It's
into
frustrating,
Yeah.
but I think if you are a faculty member, or one is a faculty member that employs those tactics, who looks at the state-of-the-art techniques and tries at least to employ them in your classroom, and then I think if these faculty members see that you've achieved a certain success, whether it's your student evaluations or thank you notes from students, or just a pat on the back.
Oh,
from
I
your
think most
supervisor.
people know who's really
I do
with
too.
it.
And I
Yeah.
think what comes into play, and I'm going to be direct, it's a fear factor. All right, what is this person doing that's so different? And she or he is achieving success in the classroom. Why am I not getting this?
Yeah.
Well, it's because
And then it needs a little humility and
Absolutely.
being willing to talk
Right.
to that person.
Right, and but that's what it's about, and recognize that. And I'm the first person to say, okay, I didn't do that just right. Maybe I could have done it a little differently. Once you can get past yourself and be authentic, that's my big word.
Are you
Yeah.
are you a different teacher now than you were when you started?
Full time or just
Yeah.
years ago? I would say I always had that sense of teaching with passion, teaching with a fire, teaching with a burn. I don't think that's changed today, although I do think that I'm more patient as a teacher today. I was tough out in industry. Nobody got in my way. That had to change when I came here. You just can't barrel over people. And I've learned to refine myself in a sense. And you do learn.
It's called aging gracefully.
Yes, it does. It does. It does mean that, absolutely.
Well, I think our listeners can get a picture of why I call Patty Raymond a hotshot faculty member, and that word hotshot that's gonna haunt you for a while.
Yes, it
And
will.
I hope it does. I hope it does. This has been Middlesex Moments. My guest has been Patty Raymond, hotshot professor at Middlesex Community College. Take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet with 2 M's, comnet.edu. I'm Jonathan Darby, interim president of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.